I'm Brandon K. Hedgepeth, and as the host of this show, I want to be the first to welcome you to the Tansson Talk Show. As a part of my mission to bring people together by having conversations with others, I want to invite you to my conversation that I'm about to have with Luke. I'm so excited to have you on.
Excellent. I'm excited to be here too. Good to talk to you, Brandon.
Yeah, it's you as well. And so, first of all, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I just had my last day of classes of my junior year here at ODU, so I'm excited to finish these finals and get started on summer.
That is so exciting. And yeah, how did it feel to finally be on the last day of classes?
It felt really good because, another year down, but it also felt a little bit bittersweet because I'm like, man, this time next year I'll be graduating and that's it for college. So definitely a little bit bittersweet, but mostly good.
Well, I'm glad at least that in the end that's good. And yeah, I mean you'll be graduating this time of year from now, and I definitely want to allow for you to go ahead and introduce yourself for the watching or listening audience here today.
Great. So yes, I'm Luke Scrivanich. And I met Brandon through the college tour. We both did our own little sections as a video you can catch on, I believe, Amazon Prime. I watched it on YouTube, and we just got to promote ODU and different parts of what we represent. I got to represent the Greek life area, and I do a lot of other things in Greek life as well.
Yeah, it was so great, being able to be a part of that opportunity. And I know we'll speak about that a little bit as well. But like I said, I'm very excited to myself to have you on. And so I guess I actually want to start off with asking. So yeah. So overall, how has your experience been at Old Dominion University, and has this been your first choice for college?
Yes, it was my first choice for college, and it's been excellent. I'm really happy with my decision to come here. In fact, I accepted ODU before I heard back from the two other schools I applied for because I really wanted to do entrepreneurship. That's what I wanted to study and what I wanted to do. And ODU was the only one that offered entrepreneurship minor. Flash forward today that they made that minor and expanded it into the new entrepreneurship major. So I'm the first student to take it, and it's been my mission now to help spread the word about this major and spread entrepreneurship as a whole to students, our age, late teens, young 20s. And it's just been a great decision, and I really, I'm just happy to be here. There's no other place I'd want to be, no other school.
I absolutely love that, and I'm so glad that you're able to be a part of the entrepreneurship program. Is that a program you were always aware of?
I knew it coming in with the minor, and then the major, I found out from one of the guys in my fraternity. He took the intro entrepreneurship class just to take it, and his professor said they're working on the major. So I emailed her, followed up, and she said, yeah, it'll be official next fall, as in this coming fall, 2024. I was like, sign me up. I'm switching out of finance. I'm making the big change.
That is so awesome. And since finance is the current major you have before switching to entrepreneurship, had you always had somewhat of an interest in finance? And I know, of course, they're a bit intertwined as well.
Right. I'd always had a big interest in finance, and that goes back to actually my father. I was about 10 years old, and I got a bunch of these action figures from Star Wars: The Clone Wars, because that show was really big then. And there was a toy store closing down, and my mom went on eBay and bought out their stock. So I got like 50 of these guys, and a lot of them were duplicates. So I ended up returning the ones I didn't want in the duplicates. I got $100 from Walmart. My dad said, I can give you this cash today, or you can invest it in the bank of me, and I will pay you interest for giving me, your money. So similar like how a bank, you put it in the savings account, you get a little tiny bit of interest. I was, like that. So I learned about banks and interest from him, and that one thing led to another. And then originally coming into college, I was trying to decide between being a stockbroker on Wall Street or a commercial airline pilot, but I definitely made the right choice of just going all in on entrepreneurship.
That is outstanding. And out of curiosity, since your upper choice when you were younger was commercial airline pilot, did you have an interest in that? Yeah, at the time.
I did. I was able to fly a seaplane in Florida a couple years back, maybe around 2019 or so, and I just loved it. I always loved flying. I've traveled a lot. I can talk a lot about that. That's my biggest motivation for achieving financial freedom is to travel and not to vacation, but to experience other cultures and learn from people that are so different, go far away, of course. So I'd always just loved flying. I loved being up in the air. And it was just like a very like moment of like peace for me. Like some people will feel that zen when they're doing yoga or maybe a meditation, a deep breathing exercise or at the gym. And like for me, every time I get on a plane, even if I'm exhausted and jet lagged, like once I'm up in the air, it's just such like a peaceful thing. You know, you feel like a Greek god like flying through the sky.
That is amazing. And I mean, yeah, that one that you want to, of course, experience that, and that you have you experienced that a little bit with, with flying. And how was that experience for you, overall?
Well, the experience overall, if you mean like in regards to like actually the career of commercial pilot, I did a lot of research on it and I thought about doing military first. And then I saw that there's a big shortage in pilots and they pay so much, so I could go right into that after college. But eventually I realized that I, well, for one, I thought it might get a little bit boring just taking off the plane, putting it on autopilot, talking to the tower, landing it. You know, I'm not a fighter jet, you know what I mean? So I thought it could potentially get boring, but I also love flying, so I wasn't that worried about that. But I really had to come to terms with the fact that I just don't want to be an employee. Of course, I will be again. I'm going to learn on other people's time, make as much money as I can, you know, and learn at the same time. But I want to work for myself, make my own schedule, be my own boss. And that's the way I think I can make the biggest impact on the world. So I'm definitely going to get my private pilot's license. I'd like to purchase my own plane someday. But as far as working as an employee, like a pilot, it's not something I want to do.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. And I like that the way that you said you want to do it is that, because you want to make an impact on the world, that you want to be able to, of course, be in control of that and not necessarily have to, I guess, be, for lack of a better word, subservient, to someone else and their mission. And so, overall, what would you say that you would want your mission to be?
My mission, well, the broadest terms possible is just to help as many people as I can before, you know, I pass away. How I go about doing that is I'd like to analyze the abilities and strengths I have, lean into those, double those down, and then, you know, work on the weaknesses too. And what I've been gifted with is an entrepreneurial mindset. I like to think differently. I like to be unique, you know, innovation, everything. I like to color outside the lines, you know, all that stuff. And that's how I've just always been. I always was just very questioning, like, why do we have to do this? Why are all the kids racing to be the first one in line when we're just walking back to the classroom in kindergarten? Like, there's a lot of, you know, little things like that, like my whole life, like social norms that I just didn't really like fit into. I didn't really like. So my mission is to help as many people as I can through entrepreneurship. And how I'm going to do that is first run my own businesses after college, get really good at running and starting small businesses, then become an angel investor in the community here in Hampton Roads, Virginia, and then also help start small businesses overseas. Because I think, you know, about charity with everything, you can give them the help they need, but it's the same thing as you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach him how to fish and you feed him for life. And I really want to create that entrepreneurial mindset and create businesses where people in these foreign countries can help themselves and build up what, you know, into what America is today. So that's really my mission.
Yeah, I love that. And like I said, I like that you're working to it, like I said, to better others and and using your own skill sets to do that. And so overall to take a step back though, since you mentioned, of course, that you first really got into the entrepreneur mindset when you were about 10 is how was life for you, growing up?
Oh man, looking back on it, I had a really great childhood with very little trauma. Um, Really just not a lot of drama, you know, not a lot of family strife until I was about 15 or so. So I had a great childhood, and I often think, oh, I should have enjoyed, you know, those summer times more. But at the time, and even now, because I guess I am still considered, you know, young at 22 years old, even now, I just don't want to go back to those childhood days because I always hated not being in control, not having freedom, not having responsibilities. and not having respect. I mean, those are probably two of my biggest motivators. The number one being making an impact, and then after that, financial freedom and freedom in general. And then after that, respect. And, as a kid, of course, you want people to take you seriously. You want to be cool. You want to be that adult, and nobody's just going to give you that respect. And it goes beyond doing what I want, going to sleep when I want, and everything. It was just kind of like a feeling of feeling so helpless and having to rely on everyone else for everything. I want to be the people that I want to be the person that provides. And I remember thinking that from, a young age, like I want to be an adult, I want to be an adult, like a lot, a lot. So growing up, everything was great. I had great friends, played a lot of sports, great relationship with my parents, good, Southern, I guess Christian values and everything like that. So nothing I can complain about, but definitely not a time I'd want to repeat.
I actually find that like so yeah, so interesting and fascinating. And so I think back to, in my own life and everything that, I've definitely been a very, independent person, so to speak. And that even though, like I said, I love doing things like, with groups and with family and whatnot, but I've sort of always like gone my own way with things, like not really the traditional path. I like making my own path, like next to it, doing my own sort of thing. And yeah, I completely relate to that. And I even think, like in middle school, like I always wanted to help others in any way that I can through my own skills and everything. And at the time, my biggest skills were like technology. And I remember people at school saying, "Well, you can't help me because you're not part of the tech group at school." It's just
Mm,
like, well, the reason I ended up joining that group was because people said I couldn't help without it. Well, I'm going to
yeah,
join the group
yeah,
then.
yeah, exactly. And probably lead the group with all your skills.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's so fun, being able to see all that. And so I completely understand the part where you're saying that though you, yeah, enjoy childhood, that's not something that you'd want to, repeat per se. And so I guess continuing forward though, after you finally, finished your time in high school and went to ODU, like, how did you begin sort of taking everything in as your own?
Well, that really happened about a year and a half ago. So January 2023, I really went on this personal development journey. And I'd always wanted to, be great and be the best, and everyone has that desire. But I realized I wasn't actually taking any actions towards that, except for trying really hard when I played sports with the fraternity and really taking grades seriously. And I'm like, there is so much more to becoming the best version of myself than grades and sports. So I really got serious about the gym is one. I started deep breathing exercises. I started journaling. Then over the summer, I found Stoicism, a great philosophy that I love and I read about every day. And just really making those like small changes. James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, won book of the year, audiobook of the year last year and everything. And even though it's not one of my favorite books, it's something I think about all the time because just like those small changes is really what people need to make those results. They don't need their bank account to increase. They don't need their body weight to change. They don't need their relationship to change right now. They need to change their habits. Because, for example, if you win the lottery, money without financial intelligence is money soon lost, what Robert Kiyosaki said. So, same thing with that. I think it's building those habits because even if everything you want is given to you, I promise you'll lose it if you don't have those habits and that discipline to back it up. So, I really started coming into my own then, realizing, hey, I need to make these small changes every single day if I want to have a better life. Hard decisions, good life, easy decisions, hard life, of course. And just, I think a big change, which another entrepreneur I love to watch every day is Alex Hormozy on YouTube. And one thing that he mentioned was a big shift in, becoming a man or just becoming independent and an adult, thinking for yourself is valuing your opinion more than anyone else's. Say, this is what I believe, this is how I feel, and I'm going to take action towards that. And that's what that's what I started doing. And I've just had great results with it. I'm in such a happier place I am now and just a healthier place than I was a year and a half ago.
Yeah, and so I actually want to inquire a little bit. So since you mentioned that you had many of these ambitious goals, but it wasn't until about January 2023 that really pushed you to do all this. Is that I guess had this question about how exactly do I do this? Was that something that had been building up for a while, or was it truly just all at once for you?
It definitely been building up for a while. The two things I can see then is it was almost halfway through my college career, halfway through sophomore year. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm almost done like halfway through college. Like freshman, sophomore year were supposed to be the fun times. I don't even have a lot of super fun memories to show for it. And on top of that, I feel like I'm not doing enough, not growing enough, not the best version of myself. So it's like I don't have these fun memories and I'm not developing. Something's gotta happen. Like I gotta do both. And then it was New Year's resolutions in January 23. And then also it was a rough time with my now ex-girlfriend. We had a serious relationship starting in high school and everything. And that as well as issues at home with my parents who are separated and going through a divorce. So yeah, everything kind of stockpiled. So I started focusing on what I can control and just being happier and healthier and focusing on my self-care because there was a lot of things I couldn't control. So I'm like, let me attack this from all different angles. Did talk therapy, counseling, which I still do now, not for any like mental illnesses, but just kind of like how we are how here is the podcast is it's so helpful to just talk to someone openly and get it all out there. So yeah, to answer your question, it was definitely building up for a while, and I basically just said, you know what, screw this, I'm gonna start taking action.
Well, I'm glad that like I said that at least you were able to take action. Would you say that your personal well being and mental health as well has improved since then?
Entirely. I mean, night and day. I even changed into an optimistic person. And I'm glad I did because I used to consider myself a pessimistic realist. Like I'd be realistic and logical, but if I didn't have enough facts, I would assume the worst that was going to happen. And that self-fulfilling prophecy, stuck true. Angsty teenager for years, of course. And I finally became positive and I'm glad I did because I'm like, if you can get in a great mood for no reason or a bad mood for no reason, like you might as well choose the good mood. And I struggle with that all the time. I struggled with that even earlier today until I went to the gym. And now being positive, I think another quote, I have a lot of quotes as you'll hear me talk about just rattling up in my brain, that pop around. But the one I'm thinking of now is you can, either be right or you can be rich. And also you can either be pessimistic and right, or you can be optimistic and rich as well. Those two kind of go hand in hand.
Well, I mean, I think it's so interesting, like what you were saying, and I'm so glad that you have so many outlets that are able to give you positivity into your life and some mental clarity as well. And since you were mentioning the gym a bit, so so I guess what overall does the gym mean to you? And I know you mentioned that you did sports and everything in your youth as well.
Yes, I did. I mean, touching on sports before I get into lifting, which is my, current kick right now. I did a lot of sports. I played soccer from the time I was 4 till I was 12. I did flag football for 3 years. I did baseball for a season. I did basketball for countless years, off and on. A lot of basketball, 2 seasons of swim, 1 season of track, and then I finally finished with 7 years of tackle football. And I still play, intramurals, which for anyone who's, not in college, intramurals is good. Well, it goes like division sports, like your D1, D2, D3 school. Then you have club sports, which is kind of like a farm team. The club sports people are often trying to get onto that division team. And then intramurals is just for fun. It's like gym class, for example. So I'll play flag football, basketball, indoor soccer, outdoor soccer, volleyball, softball, dodgeball is really fun, anything, get a little bit of brotherhood, a little bit of connection, get a little bit of, physical activity. So what the gym means to me, though, it's definitely part of it is physical, but that is the smallest part. I would say like 30% of why I go to the gym is physical, and that 70% is all for mental benefits.
Well, like I said, I like though that first of all that you've been involved in a lot of sports, over these years. And how do you keep up with all of them?
A lot of them, now I know I sounded like I played a lot, which I did. And, I always like to be like athletic and try multiple different things. A lot of those were church leagues or little clubs. It wasn't like a club soccer team where I was traveling up and down the country. It was my middle school or my high school or a church league or a rec league at, the Parks and Rec department in the county I lived in. How I kept up with all of them, though, Hmm. How I kept up with all of them is I kept switching, honestly. And that's why, I tend to get really into something and then really not into something, get burnt out from it. So looking back on it, it would have benefited me to stay with soccer because I was kind of a natural at that. But I just got kind of tired of it. I wanted to play football and then baseball and, basketball, swim and track and everything else. And I did Muay Thai for about 3 months and Jiu-Jitsu for about 2 months, and try different things. Now I'm on lifting and definitely switching it up with different sports, meeting different people. That's really what kept me, mentally up with it and didn't get burnt out from all those sports over the years.
So that actually makes me think of two different questions. And so first of all, in terms of how you mentioned that you like changing it up every so often because you'll do something, get bored of it and switch to another thing. Is that just mainly for sports for you, or is that for your interest overall?
That's for my interests overall, I'd say, and I'm really trying to get better at that because it definitely takes courage to try something new. And, if you never try, you never fail, of course, people say. But also, if you never try, you're guaranteed to fail, So what happens is, you get uncomfortable, you get embarrassed when you try something new, and like you have to suck at it. You have to suck at whatever it is in life, not just talking about sports, the new job, the new career, doing a podcast for the first time, whatever it is, you have to be comfortable enough to suck at it until you get good. And that's a rewarding thing. And the next rewarding part is mastering something. And you can't master everything. You know, the very, I'd say the very start of mastery starts at 100 hours, doing 100 hours of concentrated practice to something. Some would argue it's 1,000 hours of concentrated practice at that. And, you have those newbie gains you hear in the gym, but there's also newbie gains in everything. You have that hump, it's really hard, that learning curve. You get over that learning curve, and then you're just making all this progress and you kind of plateau out, and it's hard because you're not getting that external validation that you're getting better. In reality, you might be getting 0.10% better every single day. And that's where, you go from great to amazing, a great athlete to a pro athlete, or a great student to a PhD student, of course, is staying consistent and working hard at it every single day. And you're not really seeing any results. You're just chipping away at 1% for 3 months, and now you're 1% better. And then the process starts again.
I certainly, as I said, absolutely love that sentiment. And one of the reasons I wanted to ask that question, for the first of the two questions I had, was so since like I said, flip through certain interests, is how did you know that entrepreneurship was not going to be one of those things that you were just going to, obsess about for a little bit and move on? How do you know that this one was different?
I knew it was different, one, because it's so giant, right? I mean, saying like dedicating my life to entrepreneurship would be like, dedicating yourself to media. It's like like it's huge, you know, it's a huge topic, so it's not something I can get bored with. And also it plays into my natural inclinations, and it's the way I can make the biggest impact. So my natural inclinations, my personality traits, the way I think, all of those things that go into being an entrepreneur, I have almost all of those. If you look up in like entrepreneurship textbook, you know, what are the characteristics of one? I have all of those traits. Not saying that to like toot my own horn, just like I know that because I took entrepreneurship class and I read the textbook and I'm like went down the list. I'm like, yeah, I feel like I have all these traits. Some of them I need to work on, of course. And I definitely won't get tired of it too because it's the best way I can make an impact. I try not to have a lot of opinions on things in general, especially because I like to, you know, be how Socrates was, where he's like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Everyone thinks he's so smart, but he always says is I don't know. And that's how I like to be. But one thing I truly believe in is that people's purpose in life as humans, we're put on this life to find out our natural skills, progress them to the best of our ability, get as great as possible at those skills, and then use those skills to help others. And helping others is a very vague concept, but that's what I think we're all put on this earth to do. Develop what we have, those gifts we were given from whatever higher power you believe in, and then develop them to the best of our ability so that we can give back to others. And for me, that would be entrepreneurship.
I love that. And I like how you mentioned that entrepreneurship is just such a, I mean, just has such a big banner to it that, yeah, there's numerous different aspects for you to get involved and interested in, like media. As someone who has
Yeah.
my bachelor's degree in media studies, I entirely relate to that. Yeah, there's so much that it's like, even if you get into a different part of it, like, there's so much to explore. But I did want to actually take a step back, for my second question. And so, a few times, you've mentioned, your personal community and your community here in, Hampton Roads, and especially like with growing up. And so, overall, like, what would you say that the community really, means to you, and from when you were younger to, to even now?
Hampton Roads is really interesting because if you look at any single one of the seven cities, I believe it's Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Portsmouth, Chesapeake, Hampton, Newport News, and Suffolk, maybe Williamsburg. You know, we're all kind of blend together, but the point is, you know, there's a lot of cities right on top of one another. So when you take one city, it's not that big compared to like DC or any big American city you can think of. But when you take Hampton Roads, when you take the 757, which is we all have that same area code on our phone numbers, it's really like one giant conglomerate with over 2 million people. To put that in perspective, like our capital, DC, has like 820,000 people. So what I connect to with Hampton Roads is the diversity because any one of those cities has its own characteristics and its own diversities and its own, you know, subgroups and everything like that. And, you know, it all comes together. There's a lot of military presence, but there's a lot of, you know, people from all over the world as well. And then the other part of Hampton Roads is a lot of it's focused on maritime. Like there's Virginia Beach, of course, but the Port of Norfolk is one of the biggest, most efficient ports. The Norfolk Navy Base is the biggest naval base in the world. You know, we just have a lot of things related to the beach. And growing up on the James River, which is the same river that Pocahontas grew up on, I'm like one quick boat ride away from Jamestown back home in Smithfield, Virginia. Growing up on the James River, I can relate to that as well. And I think we all come together, at least as far as like a coastal kind of lifestyle, not as much like coastal like Southern California, but more so like coastal, like good southern vibes, you know, hospitality with a little bit of beachy river vibes kicked in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you provide just such a great description of the Hampton Roads, region. And I like how you said that, like I said, we're all like together, but we all have so many, different facets within the area. And I know, you grew up in Smithfield, I believe.
Yes, I did, and that's on the border of Suffolk and then Surrey, but it's right across the water from Williamsburg and Newport News. Like I can see the bridge to Newport News from my dock, or from my community dock, my neighborhood dock on the James River.
But I guess how would you say that, your area, Smithfield, like really resonates like with you and the wider community?
I would say Smithfield really resonates with me because it has a very strong work ethic. A lot of the people are very honest. It used to be like very, very southern, but now it's definitely more suburban and it's growing a whole lot. And I would say those basically when if you were from another country, you'd think of what like the sunny South would be like. You imagine a small, a rural town. Again, it's more suburban now, but I think it has a lot of those values that other parts of America have lost. Like I'm thinking back to like the 50s, everyone's celebrating that the World War II is over, and there's a lot of people working really hard, a lot of nuclear families. So it really resonates with me because it still feels like a little hourglass, like, lost in time, like a small, untouched American town, and that's really nice. Of course, I consider myself a city boy now. I've been living in Norfolk since I was 15 years old, but I also know my roots. Interesting, I was born in Virginia Beach, but I was 2 years old when I moved to Smithfield, so I don't remember Virginia Beach at all. But that just is another way I'm just connected to, how I talked about how this whole area is kind of connected.
That is amazing, though, and I like how you have, a little bit of origins in, numerous different parts of this area. But yeah, but like I said, it's so fun being able to hear how it resonates with, with you. But I did want to step forward a bit, as well. And so I know, of course, you're in a fraternity, and that you spoke about that during your, your appearance on the College Tour TV show. So I did want to ask, so overall, like, what really brought you into your fraternity?
So what brought me to the fraternity? I got to ODU and I noticed it was definitely like coming. So a lot of my friends are out in Smithfield, of course, and everyone you can go up and talk to anyone down there. People are more trusting. You get to the city, people are a little bit more standoffish. And I was just, a freshman. My girlfriend we were doing long distance then at the time. And just like that sense of loneliness, like, where's my community? Who do I find? And then I saw them playing flag football and having a great time. I went and talked to them because another one of the lifeguards I worked with, she was in a sorority that was really close with Theta Chi. And she said, "Oh, you should go talk to them." I was like, "I don't know. I don't really, I'm not sure about like spending all the money and everything else and like how much drinking they do, of course." And I was like, "But you know what? I'm also kind of lonely and they seem like they're having a great time. So let me go talk to them." And it was just, then I went to basketball the next day and then the next rush event. And it was the one of the best decisions I ever made coming to ODU. I mean, it's taken me to Indiana, to California. I've made constant friends from all over the country. I joined for the personal development and the brotherhood, and I got that and so much more out of it as well. And I probably wouldn't have even stayed at ODU if it wasn't for Theta Chi, because I wouldn't have made it to those entrepreneurship classes where I found other people like me. That freshman year, it's hard being in that lecture hall with 80 people and everyone's on their phone. It's hard to just even connect and find that sense of community. And Greek life is great because not only the professional development, personal development, the networking I can't speak enough about, the scholarships, the after college job opportunities, the I'd say stress reduction with parties and everything like that, but also the community service. I'm community service chairman now. The grades, I ran the study hall. I was treasurer, so that helped with my finance major and managing. I've had leadership opportunities, like I told you about the traveling to the trips, around the country. So it just connects you with campus in a way that no other organization can. If you're an athlete, you meet other athletes and everything. You do maybe little athlete mixers. If you're in an honor society, you meet with those other intellectuals and you have that. But with Greek life, you can increase your grades, have networking, have leadership opportunities, travel a lot, and just be a part of something so much bigger that your engagement with school is just so profound.
I love that it had such a, what, like you said, profound impact on you, and I like that you said too that that's one of the reasons that you decided to stay at ODU.
Yes, it really was. It really was. Because once you get, 40 guys, some of them you're closer to than others, of course. It's not like everyone is best friends, but you can call any single one of them and they'll have your back and your family's back at any time. That support network is very tight. It's hard to walk away from that, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm so glad that yeah, I mean, that it has worked out for you. And I love, like you were mentioning, the community service that you're doing as
Mhm.
well, and that you're able to stay true to your academics as well, of course.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, you can't use any organization as an excuse not to go to class. That's for sure.
And what would you say, overall, as as a part of ODU, what would you say has been like your favorite part overall about the whole experience? Yeah, now almost a full 3 years in.
Definitely my favorite part has been this semester because with the new entrepreneurship major, t getting other students to take it as well, and meeting entrepreneurs here at ODU, and then also getting connected with other entrepreneurs, in Hampton Roads. I just was able to get a connection with 757 Collab, which runs startup studios and angels and accelerate and these other programs. And this nonprofit, 757 Collab, is funded by the state of Virginia and very rich donors. And it helps, businesses build up connections. And it takes your business in 6 months if you get in, if your application gets accepted, which I'm about to apply myself. 6 months from customer discovery, the ideation phase, all the way to pitching to actual investors. So everything, a whole crash course on starting your own business. And I was able to find that through an entrepreneur that I met at ODU, and then I've been helping out him with his business. And now I'm talking with them on how ways we can integrate ODU and this nonprofit where entrepreneurship majors would graduate from ODU and then take the 757 collab program, the 6 month program, and then the next 3 month program, and etc. So that would almost be like grad school for entrepreneurs, which is it's just so exciting and it goes so much more deeper than that. But the spirit of entrepreneurship, to answer your question, is definitely my favorite part of ODU.
I so love that. And I'm really glad that you're able to really enjoy your experience and to speak about it. And so I did want to know like how it came about for you to speak about it on a wider scale on a show that's going to be on Amazon Prime very soon and especially on YouTube as well.
Yes, absolutely. Are you talking about the podcast or are you talking about College Tour now?
Oh, the college tour.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha. So, yeah, for College Tour, I believe I've seen it on YouTube. I'm not sure if it is on Prime yet myself, but that was just a great opportunity. They ha had me do all of Greek life. So I had Theta Chi in the video, but again, like what I wanted to talk about was everything, sororities and fraternities, Greek life as well. And even, there's social fraternities and there's academic fraternities too. I'm in a social one currently. So the college tour, it was a great opportunity. I was able to get it because I did another promotional video for ODU Media, and they really liked it. So they nominated me to do this one that I filmed back in September 2023. And I wrote my own script, which is about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And it's basically what we've been talking about, except, 2 minutes. I talked about growing up in Smithfield in the sports, entrepreneurship and finance, and then coming to ODU and how Greek life kept me at ODU, got me engaged, the community service, the grades, the connections, the networking, the job opportunities, everything. So it was great. And I was really proud too because I memorized my script so much that I actually was able to deliver it on the first take. So that was really exciting. Thank you, thank you. So the college tour was great. We came and we filmed me doing the speech, and then we got some B-roll with the other fraternity guys and other sorority girls playing football in our quad, playing pool, ping pong, getting, pictures with the lion statue. And then I didn't have to do anything else. Then 6 months later, it came out on YouTube, and then ODU really showed their appreciation for us. I know you got to be at that as well, where we had a panel where it was admitted students day, if I'm right, and we got to watch the whole episode, and then we got to go up on stage, sit down at the table, and then we got asked questions by one of the faculty members here at ODU. And that was great to honor us, but also so the new students could see, like, hey, here's 10 students who not only been making an impact, but really love to be at ODU.
Yeah, I just so love, this opportunity, and I'm so glad that we had a chance to be a part of it and officially meet, since we didn't really have a chance to, meet before, and we met twice within the same week.
Yes, exactly. Me too.
Yeah, and overall, and like I said, I love that the panel was able to, like you said, really represent the heart of, ODU, and especially to the admitted students, all of them that filled in the seats alongside their families. And as a brother of an admitted student, I was also very excited to, to be there and truly have a personal connection to the event as well.
Yes, it was a really big honor. It was great.
But yeah, and so as you're, entering the, the summer coming up for, for going into senior year and beyond, like what does the path look for you, Luke?
So I'm going to continue to try my best in classes, continue to lift at the gym, continue to be community service chair of my fraternity, setting up events. I would say this summer I just got a new internship opportunity, and I'm also going to bartender school. So the internship, it wouldn't be a paid one, but I would maybe do that during the day and then work the bartending at night. Before that, though, I'm doing a study abroad trip to Greece. It's a history class I'm taking, and it's 2 weeks in Greece and then 2 weeks at ODU when we actually do the rest of the studying and the assignments. And it's all over mainland Greece. So we go down, like if you've seen the movie 300, we get to go to Thermopylae. I get to be like the little tour guide for that one. We get to go to the Oracle of Delphi. We get to go to Athens a lot. So that's great. And then once I get back, I have a wedding to go to, and I told you about the internship bartending. And then I'm going to be working closer with 757 Collab and my entrepreneurship professor who created the major, Dr. Karen Eagle, and Paul Nold, who's the director of 757 Collab, to integrate with ODU. So we're going to plan a field trip for entrepreneurship students to go to Assembly, which is the co-working space in downtown Norfolk. Really nice. It reminds me of like Google or Apple, like super futuristic and everything. And then we also want to plan a giant business convention where we have business owners from Hampton Roads come and speak about how to deal with this changing economy and if we're going into times of war and globally and economically, how to prepare for that. So those are two really big events I'm excited to plan. And then on top of that, if I get into the program this 6 months with Collab, great. And if not, I'm going to apply in the next 6 months and start my own business, which I'm in the ideation phase for that as well.
That is outstanding. It definitely sounds like you have a very busy time ahead of you.
Yes, and I like to stay that way. I really do. I really do. I like to stay busy and, work towards making an impact.
I absolutely love that. And yeah, like I said, this has just been such a fun conversation. I'm so glad, I'm having a chance to, get to know you. And yeah, so I hope that you've been enjoying this experience as well.
Yeah, I really have. This has been great. You've been asking great questions too, and I've been really passionate to answer everything. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, of course. Of course. And yeah, and overall, like I said, as we're, beginning to, conclude our, discussion as well, I did want to say I'm just, so grateful that you've been able to have, just so many amazing opportunities, to continue, your personal growth, but then also, of course, your academic and entrepreneurial growth. And I'm just so excited to see what you're going to do in the future and continue to do now.
Thank you. I'm excited to see how you do as well. You growing the podcast and anything else with studying media. And I really appreciate you, having me on today, asking all these great questions and just, doing what you're doing. I'm excited to see this podcast, a couple of years from now with tons of, tens of thousands of followers and everything else.
Thank you so much. I definitely greatly appreciate that. And speaking of following, is there anywhere online that people can potentially follow you? If not, that's quite all right. But at least wanted to provide that opportunity.
Yeah, so for professional, I have a LinkedIn. It's just Luke Scrivanich, how my name is spelled here in the video. And that's pretty much about it, honestly. I mean, I'll Snapchat my close friends or go on Instagram if someone sends me a funny video, but I'm really not a big into social media. So I like to just keep it to LinkedIn for professional talks, of course.
Yeah, and I completely, like I said, understand that too. It's like, despite being content creator, it's like, I don't know. I kind of like these personal connections a little bit more than the social media ones. But
Yes, agreed.
but as we conclude, I did want to allow for you to go ahead and end out our discussion with whether it be an inspirational thought, life lesson, a favorite quote, or whatever the case may be. The floor is all yours, Luke.
Great. Yeah, wow. Um, well, it's the first time I feel like I said like I had to think about it. So I guess I'll just say two things. One is the mental benefits of exercise have really helped out me. And of course, it doesn't have to be lifting weights, just any form of exercise. It keeps you cognitively aware, reduces stress, helps you live longer. I can't speak enough about it, but for me, I notice with mental benefits of exercise that when I push myself past perceived limits, not push myself past a limit where I get injured or hurt, but I think I can only do this much and I do that extra rep or do that extra mile or whatever it is, then I'm adding confidence to myself. I'm taking away a little bit of my insecurity and I'm making that mental discomfort that we all have, that baggage, that weight on our shoulders, more bearable in the short term. So I have confidence, less insecurity, and that mental baggage. Just everything feels better. And then also in the long term, I feel like I subtract just a little bit of my trauma when I really push myself hard. So whatever I'm going through, not even going through whatever I used to go through that I'm still kind of holding on to, I get in there and I push myself hard, get all sweaty, of course, and push myself past those perceived limits and then do it again and then, leave. And then I'm like, okay, I just feel better about myself as a whole. And then the last thing I'd like to share with everyone listening is Stoicism. It's a great philosophy. It's a guide to living the good life, of course. People think about philosophy as just like a professor in, a jacket, studying a book or something. But this philosophy is really for hard times. And a book that I read every single day is this one right here. It's called Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. He was the Roman emperor at the height of the Roman Empire, most powerful man in the world, and he was an incredible figure with discipline and tons of love to spare as well. So if you'd like to be a leader, if you'd like to master your emotions, and if you'd like to make an impact, I would definitely consider doing some research on Stoicism because it's just changed my life personally.
I absolutely love that. Also, thank you so much, Luke, for coming on, speaking with us, and definitely enlightening us. I've just so enjoyed this conversation, and I know that those listening would have as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I hope so. At least I hope so. I've really enjoyed it myself. So at least one person got something out of it, right?
Yeah, definitely. And for those tuning in, thank you so much as always for tuning in to the Tansson Talk Show. I always appreciate your support. Continue tuning in every week as we continue on our mission to bring people together. I'll see you next time. Take care.
Great. Thank you.